Captain Minho stood on the bridge of the UES Indomitable and stared at the view screen. 3 alien warships floated in the darkness of space, each one 5 times larger than his flagship. They had been sitting there for 2 hours waiting for Earth's answer. The message they brought was simple and cruel. Submit or die. It had been 3 years since first contact, 3 years since the Galactic Empire arrived with promises of peace and prosperity. At first, humanity was excited. They were not alone in the universe. They would join thousands of other species in a great civilization that spanned the galaxy. Earth would take its place among the stars. But the excitement died quickly. The Empire did not want partners. They wanted servants. Governor Tovan, a tall reptilian creature with cold yellow eyes, delivered the real terms. Earth would pay massive taxes. Humans could not develop certain technologies. Human soldiers would fight in imperial wars. Earth would become a colony, not a member. Minho remembered the day Admiral Jiwoo refused. She was a small woman with iron in her spine. She stood in front of Governor Tovan and said one word: no. The governor's eyes had narrowed. He gave Earth 1 year to reconsider. That year ended today. Behind Minho, his crew worked in silence. They knew what was coming. Everyone on Earth knew. The broadcasts had been clear. If Earth refused again, the Empire would send its fleets. They would bombard cities from orbit. They would break humanity's will. They had done it to hundreds of other worlds. But something had changed in that year. Something the Empire did not know about. Deep in the lunar mountains, Dr. Sumi had been working. She was brilliant, perhaps the smartest person alive. When the Empire made first contact, they shared some basic technology as a gesture of goodwill. They thought humans were too primitive to understand it. They were wrong. Dr. Sumi took their technology apart piece by piece. She learned how it worked. Then she made it better. Human scientists had always been good at one thing: taking something and improving it. They did not invent the gun, but they made it deadlier. They did not invent the computer, but they made it smarter. Now they took alien technology and made it faster, stronger, more efficient. In secret, Earth built new ships. They were smaller than Imperial vessels, but twice as fast. Their weapons hit harder. Their shields adapted and learned. And Dr. Sumi created something the Empire had never seen before. She called it Project Fortress. Minho's communications officer looked up. Captain, incoming transmission from Earth. President Hyunwoo wants to speak with you. The screen changed. President Hyunwoo appeared, sitting in the UN emergency chamber. Behind him, representatives from every nation on Earth sat in silence. The vote had been unanimous. Every nation agreed. No more waiting. No more fear. Captain Minho, the president said, broadcast our message on all Imperial frequencies. Let them hear what we have decided. Minho nodded. His heart pounded in his chest. This was the moment. Everything changed now. He stood up straight and looked at the camera. Behind him, the 3 Imperial warships waited. Open all channels, he ordered. The communications officer worked quickly. All Imperial frequencies open, sir. They can all hear us now. Minho took a deep breath. He thought about his family on Earth, his sister, his parents, the small apartment in Seoul where he grew up. He thought about every human being on the planet below. They were all counting on him to be strong. This is Captain Minho of the United Earth Defense Fleet, he said, his voice steady and clear. I speak for all of humanity. The Galactic Empire has demanded our submission. They have demanded we become slaves. They have given us 1 year to obey. That year has ended. Here is our answer, he paused. Across the solar system, every human listening held their breath. On distant Imperial worlds, aliens leaned forward to hear what this primitive species would say. By authority of the United Earth Government, the Galactic Empire is hereby barred access to Earth space. Any attempt to enter our system will be considered an act of war. We will not submit. We will not serve. We will not kneel. Humanity stands free, or humanity does not stand at all. This is our final word. For 3 seconds there was only silence. Then the Imperial response came. A face appeared on the screen. Fleet Marshal Quarren, an insectoid creature with multiple eyes and clicking mandibles. His laughter sounded like breaking glass. Foolish primates, Quarren said. You have no idea what you have done. The Empire has existed for 10,000 years. We have conquered 40,000 worlds. You are one small planet with primitive weapons. We will crush you like insects. I am sending the 7th Conquest Fleet to your system. In 1 month, Earth will burn. Your cities will be ash. Your people will beg for mercy, and we will give you none. The transmission ended. Mino felt sweat on his palms, but his face remained calm. He turned to his crew. Send the activation codes to all defense stations. Execute Project Fortress immediately. Across the solar system, hundreds of devices activated. They had been placed carefully over the past year. On asteroids, on moons, in empty space. Each one was no bigger than a car, but together they created something incredible. Dr. Sumi had called it a gravitational disruptor network. It bent space itself. Commander Jinwoo, stationed at the Luna Command Center, watched his screens as the network came online. The devices created a barrier at the edge of the solar system. It was invisible, but it was there. Any ship that tried to jump into Earth space would be torn apart by gravitational forces. Their atoms would be scattered across dimensions. The Empire would not be able to simply appear near Earth. They would have to stop at the barrier and find a way through. That would take time, and time was what humanity needed. On Mars, Lieutenant Yunji checked her weapon systems. The defense platforms were armed and ready. The Empire thought humans were weak. They thought Earth had no real defenses. They were about to learn the truth. President Hyunwoo addressed the planet that night. Billions of people watched. I will not lie to you, he said. War is coming. The Empire will send their fleets. Many of us will die, but we have chosen freedom over slavery. We have chosen to fight rather than submit. Our scientists have given us weapons. Our soldiers are ready, and our will is unbreakable. Whatever comes, we face it together. Humanity will survive. Humanity will win. In his quarters, Captain Minho looked at a photo of Earth. The blue planet hung in space, beautiful and fragile. Tomorrow he would meet with Admiral Jiwoo to plan their defense. Tomorrow the real work would begin, but tonight he allowed himself to feel something rare. Hope. The Empire was coming, but humanity was ready. The line had been drawn. Earth space was closed, and anyone who tried to cross that line would learn why humans had survived every threat their own world had thrown at them. They would learn that humanity did not break easily. They would learn that freedom was not something humans gave up. They would learn the hard way. The war for Earth's survival had begun. The Imperial 7th Conquest Fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, exactly 1 month after Captain Minho's declaration. 300 warships appeared in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the distant light of the sun. Fleet Marshal Quarren stood in the command center of his massive dreadnought, the Eternal Subjugation. He clicked his mandibles together in satisfaction. Today the primitives would learn their place. Scan the system, Quarren ordered. Locate their pathetic defense fleet. His sensor officer worked for several minutes, then looked up with confusion in his multiple eyes. Marshal, I am detecting unusual gravitational readings throughout the system's edge. There appears to be some kind of network. Quarren waved a clawed appendage dismissively. Human tricks. Nothing they have can stop the Imperial fleet. All ships advance to Earth maximum speed. The fleet moved forward as one. They had done this 1,000 times before. Arrive, overwhelm, conquer. It never took long. Then the barrier caught them. The first 70 ships hit the gravitational disruption field and simply ceased to exist. One moment they were there, the next they were scattered across dimensional space. Their atoms were pulled in 7 different directions at once. There was no explosion, no fire. They just vanished. The remaining ship stopped immediately. Alarm klaxons blared across every bridge. Quarren stared at his screens in shock. 70 warships gone in seconds. That was impossible. Commander Jinwoo, watching from Luna Command, allowed himself a small smile. Fortress network is holding, he reported to Admiral Jiwoo. The barrier is stable. They cannot get through. Admiral Jiwoo nodded. She stood in Earth's defense headquarters, surrounded by screens showing every part of the solar system. Good. Let them sit out there and think about what they have done. Send a message to all defense stations, battle stations, but hold fire. Let us see what they do next. Fleet Marshal Quarren was not used to being stopped. In 200 years of service, he had never failed to conquer a target. His rage made his translator chip spark. Bring me the science division. I want to know what that barrier is and how to break it. The Imperial engineers studied the barrier for 3 days. It was unlike anything they had seen. The humans had taken Imperial jump technology and twisted it. Instead of opening doorways through space, they had created a field that destroyed any ship trying to use those doorways. It was brilliant and terrifying. "We can break through," the lead engineer finally reported, "but it will take time. We need to build relay stations that can map the gravitational currents. Then we can find safe paths through the field. Perhaps 6 months, maybe less, 6 months." Quarren wanted to destroy something, but he had no choice. Begin construction immediately, and establish a blockade. No ships in or out. If we cannot enter, neither can they receive supplies. The Empire began building relay stations just outside the barrier. Massive construction ships arrived. They would pierce the human defenses through patience and technology. It was only a matter of time, but time was something humanity knew how to use. Colonel Junho received his mission orders 3 days after the blockade began. He stood in the briefing room with 20 other pilots, all volunteers. Admiral Jiwoo's face appeared on the screen. "The Empire thinks they have trapped us," she said. "They think we cannot leave the solar system. They are wrong. Dr. Sumi has found unstable points in the barrier. They change and shift, but they exist. You can slip through in small ships if you are very skilled and very lucky. Your mission is to take the fight to them. Hit their supply lines. Destroy their construction materials. Make them afraid," Junho grinned. He had been a fighter pilot before the war. Now he flew something better. A human stealth frigate barely bigger than a shuttle but packed with weapons. Fast, invisible to most sensors, and deadly. That night, Junho and his squadron slipped through an unstable point in the barrier. The gravitational forces pulled at their ships, but human technology had made them strong enough to survive. They emerged in deep space behind the Imperial blockade. The first Imperial supply convoy never knew what hit them. Junho's squadron appeared from nowhere, fired their missiles, and vanished. 3 transport ships carrying construction materials exploded. The convoy's escorts fired at empty space. Over the next month, human raiders struck again and again. They hit supply depots. They ambushed transport fleets. They destroyed one of the relay construction sites completely. The Empire lost more ships to these raids than they had in the initial barrier encounter. Lieutenant Yunji watched from Mars Defense Platform 7 as the Imperial fleet grew more frustrated. They kept building their relay stations, but progress was slow. Every time they made headway, a human raid would set them back. The blockade was costing the Empire more than it was costing Earth. Inside the barrier, humanity was far from idle. Dr. Sumi had developed Phase 2 of Earth's defense. Adaptive shielding. Every time an Imperial weapon hit a human ship, computers recorded the energy signature. The shields learned. They adjusted. The same weapon would be less effective next time. She brought the technology to Admiral Jiwoo personally. "Our shields will adapt faster than they can develop new weapons," Sumi explained. "Every attack makes us stronger." Admiral Jiwoo studied the data. "You are remarkable, Doctor. We are fortunate to have you." Sumi shook her head. "We are fortunate to have people willing to fight. I just give them better tools." 6 months into the blockade, Fleet Marshal Quarren faced a problem he never expected. The Imperial High Command was questioning his effectiveness. He had lost over 200 ships and had not advanced 1 meter closer to Earth. Worse, human raids had crippled Imperial logistics in 3 sectors. Ships needed for other conquests were being diverted to protect supply lines. The Empire sent Inquisitor Malvex to help. Malvex was a mind-weaver, a species with powerful telepathic abilities. He could invade minds, break wills, drive enemies to madness. He had broken entire planetary governments without firing a shot. "I will destroy their morale," Malvex promised Quarren. "I will enter the mind of their leaders and fill them with fear and despair. They will surrender within days." Malvex reached out with his consciousness, searching for human minds to invade. He found Captain Minho first. The captain of the Indomitable was strong, but Malvex had broken stronger. He pushed his way into Minho's thoughts and hit a wall. Not just a wall, a fortress. Minho's mind was protected by something Malvex had never encountered. Human AI had created mental firewalls, digital barriers that surrounded and protected human consciousness. When Malvex tried to force his way through, the backlash was catastrophic. Malvex screamed and collapsed. His mind retreated into itself, damaged and broken. He would never wake up. Admiral Jiwoo sent a message to the Imperial fleet when she heard what happened. Just 3 words. "We warned you." Captain Minho read reports in his quarters that night. The blockade continued, but the Empire was no closer to breaking through. Human raids had destroyed critical infrastructure. Imperial morale was reportedly low. Some ships were deserting. He thought about the Inquisitor who tried to invade his mind. He had felt the attack, felt the alien presence trying to crush his will, but Dr. Sumi's neural protection held firm. The attack failed. Everything the Empire tried, humanity countered. They were bigger, stronger, more experienced, but humans were smarter, faster, more adaptable. They learned and improved with every battle. Outside his window, Earth hung in space, beautiful and untouched. The barrier held. The defense platforms stood ready. The fleet was prepared. The Empire could sit outside and watch for as long as they wanted. Earth space was closed. That was not going to change. Agent Bora moved through the dark corridors of the space station carefully. She wore the uniform of an Imperial cargo inspector, perfectly forged. Her identification badges were real, stolen from an actual inspector 3 weeks ago. Nobody looked at her twice as she passed. Just another worker in the massive trade hub. But Bora was not an inspector. She was Earth's top intelligence agent, and she was here to meet someone who could change everything. The meeting location was a storage bay in the station's oldest section. Bora entered and found 3 aliens waiting for her. They looked nervous, which was understandable. Meeting with a human was dangerous. If the Empire discovered this, they would all die. The first to speak was a Velkan named Kiresh. His people were bird-like, with bright feathers and sharp eyes. "You are the human?" he asked quietly. Bora nodded. "I am. You said you wanted to help us?" Kiresh exchanged glances with his companions. A Tarathi named Loomis, whose body was made of pure energy contained in a crystalline suit, and a Kryn named Wavesong, an aquatic being in a water-filled environment suit. "Not just help," Kiresh said. "We want to join you. There are many species who hate the Empire. They have conquered us, enslaved us, stolen from us. But we were alone, divided. The Empire crushed any rebellion before it could spread. But now you have shown us something." "What is that?" Bora asked. "That the Empire can be stopped," Loomis said. His voice sounded like bells chiming. "You are one world. One species. You had no army, no fleet, no knowledge of the galaxy. Yet you have held them back for months. You have destroyed their ships. You have made them afraid." Wavesong's translator made his words sound like rushing water. "We have been watching. We have been waiting. If humans can stand against the Empire, perhaps we can too. Together." Bora felt her heart race. This was bigger than she expected. "What are you offering?" Kiresh pulled out a data chip. "Everything. Fleet movements, supply routes, weakness in their defenses. My people have worked in Imperial logistics for generations. We see everything they do, and we are willing to share it all." Over the next weeks, Bora built a network. The Resistance, they called themselves. Dozens of species, all working in secret to undermine the Empire. They could not fight openly, not yet, but they could help humanity, and through humanity maybe find their own freedom. Captain Daehyun became the liaison between Earth and the Resistance. He was young for a captain, but he was good with people. He understood that these aliens were risking everything to help. The Velkans provided detailed maps of Imperial fleet positions. The Tarathi shared advanced sensor technology that could detect Imperial stealth ships. The Kryn offered access to hidden trade routes that even the Empire did not know existed. In return, Earth shared some of its technology. Not everything. Admiral Jiwoo was careful about that, but enough to show they were real allies. Human shield technology, human medical advances, human agricultural methods, small things that could help these oppressed species. The intelligence from the Resistance was gold. Commander Jinwoo used it to plan the most daring operation yet. "There is an Imperial battle group here," he said, pointing to a star map. 15 ships, including 2 heavy cruisers. According to Velkan intelligence, they are planning to attempt a forced breakthrough of the barrier in 3 days. They think they have found a weak point. Admiral Jiwoo studied the map. "Have they?" "No," Jinwoo smiled. "But we can make them think they have. We can create what appears to be a weakness, draw them in, then spring the trap." The plan was approved. Dr. Sumi adjusted the gravitational disruptors to create a gap in the barrier. It looked like a flaw in the network. Imperial sensors would detect it. They would think human defenses had a vulnerability. 3 days later, the Imperial battle group moved toward the gap. Fleet Marshal Quarren watched from his command ship. Finally, a breakthrough. Once they were inside the barrier, they could attack Earth directly. Victory was close. The Imperial ships entered the gap. Their shields were at maximum. Their weapons were charged. They were ready for anything except what actually happened. Human ships appeared from every direction. They had been hiding, waiting. Frigates equipped with new antimatter torpedoes that Dr. Sumi had developed. The torpedoes punched through Imperial shields like paper. Lieutenant Hana piloted her fighter, the Wildfire, with skill that came from thousands of hours of training. She had been a civilian pilot before the war. Now she was the best fighter ace in the fleet. Her targeting computer locked onto the Imperial carrier Dominance. "Fox 3, she said calmly, launching her missile. The carrier tried to evade, but it was too slow. The antimatter warhead struck the reactor core. The explosion lit up space like a small sun. The Dominance, a ship that had conquered 12 worlds, was destroyed in seconds. Hana barely glanced at it as she moved to her next target. The battle lasted 40 minutes. When it ended, all 15 Imperial ships were debris. Not a single human vessel was lost. The resistance networks broadcast the victory within hours. Across Imperial space, oppressed species whispered to each other. "Did you hear? The humans destroyed another fleet. Maybe they really can win." But Fleet Marshal Quarren was done playing games. He sent an urgent message to Imperial High Command. He needed more ships. Many more ships. The humans were not primitives. They were warriors with advanced technology and brilliant tactics. To defeat them required overwhelming force. The Empire responded by sending 3 more conquest fleets. The 3rd, 9th, and 12th. Over 1,000 warships. They would arrive in 2 weeks. When Admiral Jiwoo received the intelligence report from the Vulcans, she did not panic. She had been preparing for this. "Activate Phase 3 of Project Fortress," she ordered. Dr. Sumi had been working on Phase 3 for months. The gravitational disruptors could do more than just create a barrier. They could be used offensively. They could reach out and grab ships, then fling them away. Into stars. Into each other. Into the spaces between dimensions where nothing survived. Major Seojun prepared his ground forces. Some Imperial ships would get through. They always did. There would be fighting on Luna, on Mars, maybe even on Titan. His Marines were ready. They wore power armor that made them stronger, faster, nearly invincible. Each Marine carried weapons that could punch holes in starship hulls. "The Empire thinks numbers will win," Seojun told his troops. "They think if they send enough ships, we will break. They do not understand what they are fighting. They are fighting humans. We do not break. We do not surrender. When they come down here, we will show them what happens when you threaten our home." Captain Minho met with the other ship commanders. The fleet was outnumbered 10-1. Those were terrible odds, but they had fought worse. They had the barrier. They had the resistance intelligence. They had technology the Empire had never seen. "We are going to take losses," Minho told them honestly. "Some of us will not survive this. But we will win. We have to win. Because if we fall, the resistance falls with us. Every species that has dared to hope will lose that hope. We fight not just for Earth, but for all of them." That night, Bora sent a message to the resistance networks. "The Empire is sending 3 fleets. 1,000 ships. The battle will be enormous, but humanity will stand. Watch what happens when you refuse to kneel. Watch and remember. Freedom is possible. The Empire can be beaten." Across the galaxy, in hidden places, oppressed aliens read her words. Some cried. Some prayed. All of them hoped. The Empire was coming in force. But humanity was not alone anymore. The resistance stood with them. And together they would show the galaxy that tyrants could fall. Emperor Valdris Thowardine sat on his throne and listened to the reports with growing fury. Months of blockade. Hundreds of ships lost. Human raids destroying supply lines across 3 sectors. And now, an entire battle group obliterated in a trap. He had ruled the Galactic Empire for 200 years. He had seen species rise and fall. He had crushed rebellions on 1,000 worlds. But never in all his years had a single primitive planet caused him this much trouble. "Enough," Valdris said, his voice cold and final. "I will not tolerate this humiliation any longer. These humans think they can defy me. I will make an example of them that will terrify the galaxy for generations." His military council stood in silence. They knew what was coming. "Deploy the Annihilator fleet," the Emperor ordered. "War Prince Threxus will command. Their orders are simple. Destroy Earth's biosphere. Burn their cities to ash. Exterminate every human. Leave nothing alive. Let every species in the galaxy see what happens when you refuse the Empire." The council members bowed. None of them dared to speak. The Annihilator fleet had been used only twice in Imperial history. Both times, entire civilizations had ceased to exist. War Prince Threxus was the Emperor's nephew and his most brutal general. He was a Draxian like Governor Tovan, but larger and covered in battle scars. He had personally led the conquest of 40 worlds. He enjoyed war. He enjoyed watching enemies burn. When he received his orders, Threxus smiled with too many teeth. Finally, a real mission. I will turn their planet into a graveyard. The Annihilator fleet consisted of 2,000 warships. 30 of them were planet killers, ships designed specifically to destroy worlds. Their weapons could crack continents. Their bombs could poison atmospheres for centuries. But Agent Bora's resistance network heard about the deployment before it happened. A Velkan clerk saw the orders. A Tarathi engineer overheard planning meetings. They got the information to Earth with days to spare. President Hyunwoo called an emergency meeting. Every leader, every general, every scientist. Dr. Sumi presented her last desperate plan. Project Exodus, we can create stable wormholes, she explained. Using the same technology as the barrier but reversed. We can open doorways to uncharted space. If Earth falls, humanity can survive elsewhere. The room erupted in argument. Some leaders wanted to prepare the evacuation immediately. Others refused to consider retreat. Captain Minho stood and the room fell silent. If we run, what message does that send? He asked. The resistance is watching us. Dozens of species have dared to hope because we stood our ground. If we flee now, we tell them that resistance is pointless, that the Empire always wins. We condemn them to eternal slavery. Admiral Ji-woo nodded. Captain Minho is right. We cannot run, but we can use the Exodus technology differently. She turned to Dr. Sumi. Can you open wormholes inside enemy ships? Sumi's eyes widened. You want to collapse them from the inside? That is extremely dangerous. The people operating the devices would not survive. Then we asked for volunteers, Ji-woo said quietly. They got more volunteers than they needed. Colonel Junho was the first to sign up. I have been fighting this war from the beginning, he said. If I can take a planet killer with me, that is a good trade. Lieutenant Hana volunteered. So did hundreds of others. They knew they would die, but they would take Imperial ships with them. They would give Earth a chance. Captain Yunji, now commanding her own destroyer, prepared her ship and crew. The Annihilator fleet would arrive in 3 days. Every human ship, every defense platform, every weapon would be needed. This was not just a battle. This was the war. Everything humanity had built, everything they had fought for, came down to this. The Annihilator fleet emerged from hyperspace at the barrier's edge exactly on schedule. War Prince Threxus looked at the sensor readings and laughed. They are still hiding behind their barrier. They think it will save them. Today it falls. He had brought specialized equipment, barrier breakers, designed specifically to tear through the gravitational disruption field. It would take time, but it would work. In 6 hours, the fleet would break through. Then Earth would die. Admiral Ji-woo watched the enemy fleet on her screens. 2,000 ships. It was the largest fleet ever assembled in human history. But humans had faced impossible odds before. All ships assume defensive positions, she ordered. Activate all barrier weapons. And may whatever gods exist help us all. The Battle of Sol began with the Empire trying to breach the barrier. Human forces activated Phase 3. The gravitational disruptors reached out and grabbed Imperial ships. A cruiser was flung into the sun. 3 destroyers were smashed into each other. A dreadnought simply vanished into dimensional space. But there were too many ships. For every one destroyed, 10 more advanced. The barrier breakers did their work. Slowly, the barrier began to fail. Colonel Junho and his volunteers launched their suicide mission. Small ships, each carrying an Exodus device. They flew straight at the planet killers. Imperial Point Defense tried to stop them, but human pilots were too skilled. Junho's ship crashed into a planet killer's hull. He activated the wormhole device. The planet killer collapsed on itself as space tore open inside its core. Junho died instantly, but he took 5,000 Imperial crew with him. Across the battle, other volunteers did the same. 8 planet killers were destroyed before the Empire understood what was happening. Captain Yunji led her destroyer squadron against Imperial cruisers. Her ship took heavy damage, but she kept fighting. Her crew was wounded. Her shields were failing, but she refused to retreat. We hold the line here, she told her people. Not one step back. Major Seojin got his wish. Imperial dropships made it through to Luna. Thousands of Imperial soldiers landed, expecting easy conquest. They met Marines in power armor instead. The fighting was brutal and close. Seojin himself killed an Imperial champion in single combat, using nothing but a combat knife and raw determination. On Mars, Imperial bombardment destroyed 3 cities. Millions died, but the survivors fought on. Civilian volunteers took up weapons. Engineers turned mining equipment into improvised guns. The Empire took the surface, but the humans retreated into underground tunnels and made them pay for every meter. Captain Minho and the Indomitable fought at the center of the battle. War Prince Threxus had noticed the flagship and decided to destroy it personally. His massive warship, the Desolation, was twice the size of the Indomitable and carried 3 times the weapons. The 2 ships circled each other like ancient warriors. Threxus fired everything he had. Minho dodged and countered. The battle went on for hours. Both ships took terrible damage. Minho's bridge was hit. Fire spread through the corridors. Half his crew was dead or wounded, but Minho was not finished. He saw an opening. 1 shot, 1 chance. All power to forward cannons, he ordered. Everything we have left, fire! The Indomitable's main guns fired their last shot. The beam cut through space and struck the Desolation's reactor core. For 3 seconds, nothing happened. Then the enemy flagship exploded in a ball of white fire. War Prince Threxus died without knowing he had failed. Without their commander, the Imperial fleet began to panic. Ships broke formation. Some tried to retreat. Admiral Jiwoo saw it and pressed the advantage. All ships attack. Drive them back! The Imperial fleet broke. For the first time in 10,000 years, an Imperial armada retreated from battle. They left behind 700 destroyed ships and countless dead. Earth had won, but the cost was staggering. Captain Minho woke up in a hospital bed 3 days after the battle. His left arm was gone, replaced with a mechanical one. His left eye was covered with bandages. The doctors said he would never see out of it again. But he was alive, which was more than most could say. Admiral Jiwoo visited him that afternoon. She looked tired. They had won, but winning had nearly destroyed them. How many? Minho asked quietly. 4 million dead, Jiwoo said. 3 cities on Mars gone. Luna lost half its population. Titan was bombarded from orbit. 70 capital ships destroyed, including the Indomitable. Another 100 damaged beyond repair. Minho closed his eyes. 4 million people. He thought about all the faces he would never see again. Colonel Junho, Lieutenant Hana, thousands of brave volunteers who flew into certain death to save Earth. But we won. Jiwoo continued. The Imperial fleet is broken. They lost 700 ships. War Prince Threxus is dead. And more importantly, the galaxy saw what happened. They saw us stand against the Annihilator fleet and survive. They saw the Empire retreat. She pulled out a data pad and showed him news broadcasts from across the galaxy. The resistance networks were exploding with activity. 3 Imperial sectors had erupted in open rebellion. The Velkans declared independence and the Empire could not stop them. The Tarathi sealed their space and dared the Empire to enter. The Kryn refused to pay tribute anymore. Dozens of other species were watching and wondering. If humans could do it, why not them? President Hyunwoo addressed Earth and the galaxy that night. He was an old man now, worn down by years of war, but his voice was strong. We did not want this war, he said. We asked only to be left in peace. The Empire refused. They came with threats and armies. They tried to make us slaves. And we said no. That single word cost us millions of lives, but it also preserved our freedom and gave hope to billions across the galaxy. Today I make a new declaration. To any species that wishes to stand free, humanity will stand with you. We will share our technology. We will offer our protection. We will help you build defenses. The age of the Empire is ending. A new age begins now. Dr. Sumi barely slept for the next 6 months. She was busier than ever. The Velkans wanted the fortress technology. The Tarathi needed help with weapons systems. The Kryn wanted human medical advances. Every day brought new requests from new species. She established the Human Resistance Joint Research Station on an asteroid in neutral space. Scientists from 40 species worked together, sharing knowledge that the Empire had always kept secret. Technology that had been hoarded for thousands of years was now freely traded and improved. A Velkan engineer improved human shield harmonics by 30%. A Tarathi physicist helped Earth develop better sensors. A Kryn biologist created medical treatments that saved countless lives. Together, they were stronger than any of them had been alone. Admiral Jiwoo oversaw the construction of the Free World's fleet. It started with human ships and Velkan vessels. Then the Tarathi joined. The Kryn added their submarines adapted for space. Within a year, it was the second largest fleet in the galaxy, ships from dozens of species all flying together as equals. They patrolled the borders of free space. They protected new rebel systems. When the Empire tried to crush a rebellion, the Free World's fleet appeared to defend it. The Empire found itself fighting on 100 fronts at once. Emperor Valdris watched his empire crumble. Rebellions everywhere. Trade disrupted. Fleets stretched too thin. All because of one planet, one species that refused to kneel. His advisors were divided. The military wanted total war. Send every ship, burn every rebel world, drown the galaxy in blood until order was restored. But the economic advisors warned that the Empire could not afford it. They were losing more resources than they gained. The cost of fighting on so many fronts was bankrupting the treasury. And there was another problem. Imperial soldiers were deserting. Some did not want to die fighting enemies who should have been allies. Others saw the free worlds offering freedom and equality, and they wanted that for themselves. Entire ships were defecting to join the resistance. The Empire was dying, not with a bang, but with a slow collapse. Ambassador Gina was Earth's choice to lead the peace negotiations. She was young but brilliant. She had studied Imperial culture and spoke 5 alien languages. When she met with Imperial diplomats on neutral ground, she knew exactly what to say. The Empire can continue fighting, she told them. You can send more fleets, more soldiers. You can burn more worlds, but you will lose. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. Because you are fighting an idea, and ideas cannot be killed with weapons. The lead Imperial diplomat was an old Draxian named Korthan. He had served the Empire for 100 years. He knew Gina was right, but admitting it felt like failure. What does Earth want? He asked finally. Peace, Gina said simply. Real peace. Not the peace of submission. Not the peace of conquest. The peace of equals. Recognize sovereign systems. Enforce servitude. Create a galactic council where all species have a voice. Share technology instead of hoarding it. Trade instead of steal. Work together instead of dominate. The negotiations took 9 months. They were brutal and exhausting. The Empire did not want to give up power. Earth and the Resistance refused to accept anything less than real change. There were moments when it seemed like war would restart, but slowly terms emerged. The Empire would recognize all systems that declared independence. Forced military service would end. A galactic council would be formed with representatives from every species. Technology would be shared through the Joint Research Station. Trade would be free and fair. It was not perfect. Many species, including humans, did not trust the Empire. But it was a beginning. On Luna, where the first Imperial invasion force had landed, they built a monument. It was a simple black wall with names carved into it. 4 million names. Every human who died defending Earth's freedom. Captain Minho attended the dedication ceremony. He was retired now, too injured to command a ship. But he taught at the Fleet Academy, training the next generation of officers. He brought his students to the monument every year. They stood in silence, reading the names. Then Minho would tell them the story. How Earth said no. How they built the barrier. How they fought the Annihilator fleet. How they won. We were outgunned and outnumbered, he would say. Logic said we should surrender. Wisdom said we should compromise. Fear said we should run. But we did none of those things. We stood our ground. We fought with everything we had. And we taught the galaxy a lesson it will never forget. Freedom is not given, it is taken, and once taken, it must be defended, no matter the cost. Above Earth, the fortress network still glowed. The barrier remained active, not because Earth expected attack, but as a reminder, a symbol. The message was clear to anyone who looked at it. Earth space was closed to conquerors, but it was open to friends. Come in peace and you were welcome. Come in war and you would be destroyed. Humanity had taken its place among the stars, not as servants. Not as victims, but as equals, as defenders of freedom, as proof that no empire, no matter how old or how powerful, could break the will of those who refused to kneel. The galaxy was changing, and it changed because one species dared to say no.